Mark Barton was a client of Momentum Securities. There was simply no indication that this unfortunate incident might happen.
Sadly, the next item was not an isolated event, and similar horrifying circumstances have played out before and since. However, the details of the murders that occurred on the 29th of July 1999 were a particularly sad and grisly example of a family annihilator condition that appears to be a particularly 20th century phenomena.
What we're finding out more and more about these individuals is that there is a bit of a trail that they leave behind, but not in the criminal justice system. Typically in areas like counseling or past mental health, usually depression, mood disorders, and so on.
And in researching this story, demonstrated, as if I needed to discover this, the insanity of freely available firearms in societies incapable of recognizing the mental health deficiencies of some of those people who purchase lethal weapons capable of killing multiple victims.
I think we would all sleep better if we really could predict who's going to be a mass killer. The things that he was talking about, looking for someone who's isolated, alone, or disaffected. But that describes so many adolescents, so many young adults. And even psychiatrists are no better than flipping a coin at able to determine who with a mental illness is prone to violence.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. Sure, you need an organized military force to defend your country, but the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is the people, in contrast with the militia.
The police chief in Bath Township telling me at least 9 people have been wounded in an attack that
4 people are dead and 20 others are injured after a shooting at a bar in South Carolina that happened before 1 in the morning.
At least 10 cities reported mass shootings. Those are shootings with 4 or more victims. Several of those cities saw gunfire more than once.
44-year-old Mark Orrin Barton was born into an Air Force family and was raised in South Carolina. He studied at Clemson University and then went on to find employment in Atlanta, moving there with his first wife, Deborah Spivey, whom he married in 1979, and with whom he had 2 children named Matthew and Michelle. Unfortunately, this marriage was to go disastrously wrong. He'd first got into difficulty with the law when he was in university, and then, having spent a brief time in prison for a retaliatory act, when his paranoid suspicions following his dismissal led him to sabotaging data at the business owned by his former employer. On his release, Barton embarked on an affair in 1993. A few months later, his wife Deborah and her mother Eloise were found brutally bludgeoned to death. Incredibly, given his obviously fragile mental stability,
manic episodes are usually very extreme, out of the ordinary for the person experiencing them, and the episodes last at least 7 days.
His infidelity.
In June 1993, Mark and his lover Lee went on a trip together. Mark tried to convince his wife Deborah that it was just a business trip to a nearby state.
The fact that he'd done some things wrong before, and he'd benefited from a $294,000 insurance settlement from his first wife's death, using the funds to finance his day trading career, he didn't appear to be the prime suspect for some reason.
Hand me the keys, you fucking cocksucker.
At the very least, he wasn't arrested. He married his second wife, 27-year-old Lee Ann Van Diver, in 1995. But his mental health continued to decline.
He was amazingly quick in getting into his trades. He had split-second decision-making.
And his risky trading venture resulted in him losing $105,000, leading to Momentum Security cancelling his account a week later.
His account was closed last Tuesday.
This resulted in Barton's depression increasing exponentially, and led him to travelling down the inevitable disastrous conclusion of this cautionary tale.
He came in for half an hour, and
he came in for half an hour on Tuesday?
On Tuesday at about 3 o'clock.
Tell me about that.
I was so surprised to see him. I says, Mark, I can't believe you're back, and said, are you coming back to taunt us?
That summer's day, he travelled to the offices of Momentum Securities and the Ultec Investment Group and randomly began shooting employees.
And, it turned out that he came back to kill us, to try and kill us all.
13 people were injured and 9 Momentum employees were counted among the dead before he took his own life on his imminent apprehension by the police. The following investigation led to Atlanta police officers entering his home and discovering the bodies of Leanne and his son Matthew David Barton, who was 11, and Michelle Elizabeth Barton, who was 8. It remains the deadliest such attack in Atlanta, but sadly not in the United States, which has had over 150 shootings with mass casualties in the last 26 years.
Shake it!